it was fun for me to start doing this with you, Tiff, and it was fun to kind of do more research and dive into things that, you know, new research is showing all sorts of different things and how things are, how we really get pigmentation in the first place, right? And it's very exciting to see that we're talking a little bit more about that UV, HEV exposure. Since we work so much from our computers, our phones, that light is coming at us. It's such a high amount of the big amount of rate that we're actually standing in front of computers and these blue screens, and the light is continuous, right? For the most part, everything we're doing. So when we're stimulating,
how many times has someone said, "Oh, I don't need to wear sunscreen because I work indoors." You know, I'm not outdoors all the time, and we're finding more and more now, and you know that that's not the case, and because HEV does have such strong rays that they still have the potential and just as much risk as someone that is in the outdoors. So
yeah, and we're seeing that the studies are showing that it takes a long time for us to see that pigmentation come up. So it's going to take a while for us to understand even too how long HEV is going to take to show the damage.
Well, and this is a good thing. We as estheticians, we are working with the skin, the outer layers of the skin, primarily the stratum corneum, and this is where looking at both epidermal as well as dermal pigment and really giving that realistic assessment to all of our clients on the expectations that they want with results.
It's so important. We talked a little bit about it yesterday when we were putting these slides together. And like I said, we have to find patients, and we also need to stick with the program, because those, you know, that pigmentation, those age spots, and I saw a huge amount of them show up. I'm in my 50s, and my arms started to notice, I started to see them there, and that freaked me out because I was a sunbather, and I was that person that was unfortunately wearing baby oil back in the 80s and laying out, and I didn't put iodine
sprinkler under the tramp and you laid there and listened to the boom box.
The boom box, yeah, for sure. Out in Malibu every weekend. But yeah, so looking at this, I mean, and that's also something we need to touch on, and you can see here in the slide that the epidermal versus the dermal pigment, right? And how we can exfoliate nicely with epidermal pigment, which, you know, it's very easy for us to manage and brighten it. However, the dermal pigment is going to be something that we need to focus on managing and brightening, but it takes time and consistency. For those who are not aware, those lighter, fairer people, like my beautiful friend Tiffany here, she doesn't get the same brown or black spots I get. She might get more of a yellow or reddish kind of, you know, pigmentation.
More of a freckling kind of speckling, as you will. And they just start to, as I've gotten older, well, they start to connect.
Yes, yes. And we know that hormones play a fact in this as well. However, our focus isn't today on melasma. So let's remember, we're focusing on UV damage, age spots, things that happen over time, whether it's not just UV damage, but it could be, you know, trauma that happened to the skin as well. That being said, let's look at the life of an age spot. UV exposure and triggering, I mentioned, right? So we talked about the melanin that actually is in the base right there in that melanocyte. And it basically comes through those little, every time I see this, I think this is such a great image in my mind, because I think of like Alien. I can't help but think of this. But all these melanocytes, yeah, the melanin, the melanocytes, they're so active after they've been triggered by UV or HEV rays. And as we see that production go, you know, kick into high gear, we have to remember the exposure that leads to overproduction is such a big process, and it's ongoing. You want to add anything, Tiff? I'm going to quickly look at something really quickly.
No, I mean, one of the things that we want to remember definitely is just kind of that process is, you know, I always like to remind and point out the fact that melanocytes do have that memory. And so once they've been triggered or they initiate that overproduction, within those dendrites, creating that melanosome transfer into keratinocytes, they remember it. And so a lot of the times, obviously where we're dealing with UV exposure, a bad sunburn, things like that, that's where a lot of the times it will remember. And so when you do experience, a hot and humid climate again, what have you, all of a sudden it comes back to the surface because it remembers what you did to it before.
Yes. And we know that, sorry, my computer's locking up a little bit right now, so bear with me.
Do you want me to switch and change the screen for you? Just holler at
No,
me.
we'll go ahead. Sorry, I'm gonna try this.
You're good. We
There
love
we go.
technology sometimes. It's
I know.
awesome.
My computer seems to be a little challenging, and you guys have experienced who's been on my classes before, my webinars before. I have the slowest computer, I think, in the company. Okay, so pigment buildup, we talked a little bit about that earlier in this last slide, but this one is really talking a little bit towards the amount of, as we get older, it's much more noticeable, and then the years of consistent sun exposure and how that pigment tends to build, and it just exasperates itself. So yes, we notice that they take a while to come up, but then it's harder to get rid of. That uneven pigment starts, when we're younger, we're like, oh, when I first started to see my first age spot, I said, that's new. And I've slowly started to notice that as it started to get darker, I was like, gotta hit it hard. So not hit it hard, but I started to use those inhibitors and then doing more peels a little bit more actively, because I can get a little lazy when it comes to that. But those early signs may appear just as light discoloration, and then eventually you start to see that pigment that has been sitting below work its way up. So anyone over 40 and up, that's when we start to notice everything we've done, laying in beds or out in the sun or in tanning beds. That's when you start to see that exposure, that pigment buildup really kind of rear its nasty head. And these are always really great to look at, because that's really what it starts to look like. Visible spots. The appearance are flat, brown. I was kind of looking at all of mine. This class made me kind of want to go deeper into just examining everything I have. And personally, I have dealt with melanoma scares, and have had to have things that were birthmarks, that I knew my whole life what they look like. And when I started to see things change, and that dermatologist was like, oh no, don't worry about it with your ethnic background. I don't think you have anything to worry about it, Lou. I said, biopsy it anyways. A week later, they said, you need to come in. We need to talk a little bit about what our plan is. This is going to be melanoma within the year, and your whole birthmark needs to come out. So every time I tell that story, I think, okay, I was that sun lover. And I still love being outside, but now I'm so much more active and willing to be mindful about big hats, sunscreen, and covering my arms. And if you want to prevent this kind of exposure and delay any kind of, visible spot as you get older, what do we need to do? What's your favorite thing to do, Tiff?
Well, I was just going to say one of the key things where we are obviously Lyra Clinical, and we are charting our clients and looking at that progress. It is a great place to kind of indicate or make a note for yourself on your clients, by way of, if you are seeing kind of a spot that might be changing, it might be growing, it might, the color is changing, what have you. This is a really great way to be able to, again, make those notes and then kind of just check up on it with your client. I can tell you from personal experience that I have actually found on clients, and one of them was my sister, precancerous lesions, and saying, hey, you might want to go get that checked out. And, just not kind of over being cautious, but, sharing that with them. And when she did go, the physician was like, how did you know to come in for this? And she was like,
Yeah.
my sister's an esthetician, you know? So, I mean, that is a great way. Just by way of those solar Latyngenes that we see, the key thing that I like to kind of emphasize is the flat nature of them. So where we're looking to be a little bit more concerned is if it has a rough texture on top.
Yeah, and that's a great point too, because mine came from a tiny little flat mole that I've had on top of a birthmark, and the shape and the color changed. So when you see that happen, you definitely want to stay on top of it. Now, you can also see that there are like, it's like a little darker brown, almost like a purplish like fade to it, or like shade to it on the hands. And that's where I think I see more of that purplish tone, kind of pop its head more so than the face. And it could be just because we are much better. I don't know what your take on that would be.
Well,
Why
and
it
I
tends
mean, how many times have you heard your grandma say, "Oh, I got a liver spot"? It's because
I
of
know
that
those liver
dark red
spots.
purplish color, because it looks like liver.
And that's true. Let's see. Oh, is my audio messing up, Nina or Lou or Tiffany's? Oh, that was Tiffany. Okay.
Oh, it was me. Maybe I was too close.
Yeah. You're kissing your mic.
Always.
The life of an age spot. This is a good one. I like always. It's slower turnover, right? So it takes a while for it to show up, because what happens as we age, things slow down. That cellular turnover it just slowly pushes things up. And that's why I mentioned earlier about making sure that we have that same patience, because it took a while for it to show up. It's going to take a minute for it to disappear. So remember to stay compliant with your clients, or remind your clients to be compliant, because everything that they've done is starting to slowly show up. And you can start early. You know, if someone's in their 30s and they're seeing just a little bit of shade happening, or in their early 40s, then it is really about protection on top of inhibiting, right? So that oxidative stress can deepen that pigmentation. It lingers longer. It's harder for it to disappear. But thankfully, here at Lyra, we actually have some amazing tools. I actually like to see this next image and this next slide, where you can see what happens after 6 months of doing some home care and advanced peels using our GPS system. That's
Now,
to
this
me,
client,
that was a beautiful image.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
Go
Lou.
ahead. Oh no, you were going. You do. The client.
I was just going to say, yeah, this client actually, one of the key things is they're looking, oh, wow, you know, this is a phenomenal before and after, in the sense that you could tell that some of this pigment that was being targeted was very, you know, definitely there was that epidermal factor, but there was some dermal pigmentation as well. This client actually, I believe, was from our Australian distributor. So
yeah,
when we're looking at hyperpigmentation overall, obviously we know that UV is a huge factor, and is even more so down in Australia. With this, I will remind that she did have 5 treatments. They were all a GPS 2 and above.
Oh,
So
I
they
lied.
were
Yeah, this
those
is actually,
advanced treatments. And she was home care compliant. So that's the other thing that we always need to remind everybody.
and this Anastasia, she's actually in Lexington, Kentucky.
Oh, whoops.
Right on.
Even us
Yes.
educators make mistakes sometimes.
Yeah, we make mistakes. But you know what? Having that client on that home care, I know that we've talked about it before, is such a big tool. You know, when you're doing any type of service and a client really wants to work on a situation, if we will, we want to make sure that they're doing the things they need to do at home. These are partnerships. So I always say that, like, it's a relationship, it's a partnership. I can't be that person that's putting on your sunscreen every single day. So we always ask that question, what is the best sunscreen for that client? Anyone want to tell me? It's not a trick question, or maybe it is. I would say, since everybody's not really moving yet, let's get everybody waking up.
I love that, Katie. Whatever they will wear.
Exactly, whatever they will wear. Yes, here we go. We know that. So yes, so the one that they will wear, that tells us that everybody has a different feeling about sunscreen. And Tiff, what's your favorite?
I am not a super big makeup wearer myself. And so my go-to is definitely our Solar Shield 30 Classic Tint, because I don't wear foundation. So in that regard, I feel, whether I'm working from home like I am right now or teaching a class, I still feel comfortable with the coverage that it gives me. And so whether I'm just, a little bronzer and some mascara and go, or, we're at a show or something like that, where obviously I'm wearing more makeup, but all the things, that's where definitely Classic Tint is my fave.
Yeah, and the Classic Tint is one that I wear when I'm not doing anything, but I also go to that BB. So depending on, I'm still a makeup girl. I like makeup. I like to put it on. I was in my early or late teens and I worked for Lauder, so I used to love putting on the shadows and the mascaras. So we still go back to that. I like to wear an oil-free and the Elio drops. Yes, Heather, thank you for piping in. Those are phenomenal too, because that texture is really unique. And when I do go hiking, that is one of the things that I do bring. So it feels good when I reapply. It doesn't feel funny.
I can tell you that my 15-year-old teenage son, who it's like pulling teeth before to actually have him wear SPF. He's a Fitz 1, he's a redhead, but he absolutely is in love with the Elio drops. And where, we live in Utah, high elevation, really dry and arid here, he does struggle with acne, but because of that anhydrous formulation, it really helps with his barrier protection. And so that's where, I don't even have to ask anymore. He just automatically puts it on. And where the tube is so easily dispensable, he doesn't feel bad or weird, putting it in. Well, actually right now he's playing tennis, so he's, he doesn't mind leaving it in there and pulling it out and putting it on.
So what a great job here our little estheticians have done with, skincare and helping clients deal with these issues. And, for our benefit, there are some amazing diagnostic tools out there. And we do tend to love to talk about the Woods lamp. What's your favorite part about using the Woods lamp, Tiff?
I think it's one of those things where, when we're looking at our clients and we're seeing them and we're giving them that mag lamp and we give them the mirror and, okay, let's check it out. And they're like, okay, yeah, I see that. I see that. And then you pull out that Woods lamp. And if you have the opportunity for them to be able to see, and to be perfectly honest, I don't think you need, and hopefully don't shoot the messenger on this one, but you don't need some extremely expensive machine in order to be able to start to see that damage that is being surfaced or is directly below the surface, because you do have that opportunity with a Woods lamp. And when we look at that and be able to show them with just, your regular natural light, say, okay, do you see this spot, and this spot? And they're like, yes. And then you put that Woods lamp on and those spots stay the same color or they just fade ever so slightly, then you can let that client know these are well established, age spots, that it's going to take some time for us to have them go away. But then obviously with that Woods lamp, they see a whole bunch more, and we can explain to them that this is epidermal pigment, and that epidermal pigment, we do have the opportunity to resolve and correct and even manage it before it even surfaces. And so that's where, again, that Woods lamp is a very affordable tool that you can utilize to be able to explain things to your client but it's also visual. So they have that opportunity to understand it a little bit more and understand when you said, you know, you need to be using your ProBright Plus serum twice a day.
Yeah,
But
I think that you're right on when it says, when you're saying that we don't need to spend a lot of money. I know that there's a lot of tools out there that can be great if you're in a very established business and you want to spend a lot of money and kind of have something that would be a skin analysis tool of sorts. But this to me is that grab and go while they're on the table. And like you said, it's interactive. So as I always say, again, I'm going to keep saying it out loud, is it's the relationship, right? You are educating them. You're not selling them anything. You're educating them. And then it turns into a reminder of the services that they need to do. It reminds them of your importance and the ability to actually help them fight these concerns. And one of the other ones, and we're gonna move on to the next slide, which is a really great slide. This is something we don't use enough, and we should talk more about. And we are talking about it. Is that SHI? You know, it's that skin hyperpigmentation index. So let's move forward.
with our just to touch base with that Fitzpatrick evaluation in your forms, you know, just about any educational course that you take at Lyra, you have the opportunity to download those consent forms and assessment forms, including a Fitzpatrick evaluation scale. And I would encourage everyone to be able to utilize those. They're wonderful resources that have been looked over and have been used many times over in regards to being able to show you, you know, that a lot of those boxes have been checked in regards to whether it's a consent form, a photo release, or a skin assessment. But we're really excited here at Lyra to be able to kind of, so to speak, introduce you to the Skin Hyperpigmentation Index, or as Lou indicated, the SHI. Now, for most of you, hopefully you know what our GPS system is, our guide and protect system, that enables you to give you that guide or that pathway that you have the opportunity to recommend a treatment plan for your client, but also helps to recommend the proper home care products that are going to be able to prevent, correct, or maintain those skin conditions that your client has. So when we look at this, you can also see that the Skin Hyperpigmentation Index, just like our GPS, has 4 levels, an SHI 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so this is where it works so beautifully to be able to be incorporated and complement the other items within our GPS system. So where we know we have 4 grades of acne, we have 4 grades of or stages of rosacea. We have GLOW-GAL classifications 1 through 4. And so this is where we really felt strongly that our Skin Hyperpigmentation Index is a wonderful addition, and incorporating it into that GPS assessment just to give us a better overall view of the skin.
Yeah, so when you're looking at this, when you're at that SHI1, we see little to no pigment with the skin, predominantly protected from sun exposure. So maybe, what would you say, if we're looking at aged skin, maybe somebody who's in their teens, right?
Yeah,
They have
teens
little
to
to no,
early 20s, I would say. You know,
yeah,
obviously, I think this one for sure is determinant on lifestyle. You know, whether where your client lives and the true outside amount of sun exposure that they are experiencing. But once
yeah.
you kind of start to hit that aging year of 25 and we start to lose collagen, I think that's where, you know, definitely a lot of our clients unknowingly just automatically kind of graduate into that SHI2 or that medium category. And they're not even
Right.
aware of it because it's, you know, you can't see it because it hasn't surfaced yet. So
So,
they
I mean,
start
what a
to
fun
notice those
tool if we're using this tool along with GPS, and how we always talk a little bit about where someone is higher in their total scoring using our GPS index, scoring, taking in the FITS, taking in the GLOW-GAL, and we're saying, okay, they're going to be a GPS 3 or 4. That's where I want to take them. But you also now are adding this medium, severe, or maximum in terms of issues with pigmentation. And now we're going to try and get them back down to, just like in our GPS, to a maintenance place, and maybe keep them at that medium. I mean, for somebody who's in their 50s or in their 60s, realistically, those, you have to remind everybody, right? What can you do for them? But we can do a lot, and you saw that in that last slide. So if someone is dealing with increased pigmentation, a lot more darker spots, well-defined patches, and we're talking maybe somebody who was a smoker and a sun worshiper, and they're seeing that, and their maximum is an SHI 4, right? We want to get them to at least a 3 or a 2 to keep them happy with what's going on and seeing their changes, just like GPS. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And when we're looking at GPS, so if there's anyone on here in regards to, that is fairly new by way of our GPS system, it means Guide and Protect system, and it's actually our exclusive aesthetic treatment classification system. So it helps for you to be able to kind of create that treatment pathway or that treatment plan. It gives you that guide, and then you have the opportunity to customize it to your clients. If you haven't already, this is where I always suggest kind of our green Lyra Clinical estheticians that to look towards our product anatomy, our Smart Peels Advantage Part 1 and Smart Peels Advantage Part 2 courses that Lou teaches live online. So you have the opportunity to have that interaction with her.
And there's a pretty great explanation of our GPS if people spend the time looking at our manual, because our manual is so filled with so much information from product anatomy, obviously, and protocols, but it does have all of these classifications and then a deep understanding on how GPS works. But just to make it super clear, I like to say, if we want to keep it super simple, and simplifying it is GPS 1 is what? One modality.
Yes.
That means one layer, one exfoliant, whether it's a peel, hydrodermabrasion, microdermabrasion, whatever you want to say is considered a GPS 1. It's one layer of our beautiful peels. If you want to do something a little bit more and graduate them up to a GPS 2, which most people, I feel like, pretty much can do a GPS 2. Our GPS 2s are very effective without leaving that crazy downtime that you see with other peels. But it can leave some, shedding, light exfoliation, day 3 and 5. So I hope that kind of helps you. So that's two modalities, whether it be a microdermabrasion or let's say a green power exfoliant with a cleanser, and then a lactic.
And this is where,
Like
I always encourage, our Lyra clinical representatives are so knowledgeable, and they have the opportunity and so many resources to direct you to be able to get you to, those specific educational courses that are going to best suit you, as well as your business, for you to be the most successful as possible.
So now let's talk a little bit about overexfoliation. What'd you say? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I was like, and then we have the fun times of overexfoliation.
Yeah, who doesn't do it, right? In today's society where people are using some wonderful tools at home or constantly using acids, and they're not listening to their esthetician, and then you get them and you're now having to repair. That overexfoliation on top of increased UV damage can really induce more damage to the skin. It disrupts that barrier and it triggers more pigmentation. So you can see in this image, and I think it's pretty in depth, really, not always do you see the same thing, but a lot of what I would see would be maybe more irritation, very reactive to the skin, redness and inflammation. Tiff, have you seen any of these other ones in your practice where you're seeing the reaction to that are creating small pimples? And maybe someone can share too.
Yeah, I mean, with those initial breakouts, a lot of the times it's because again, that barrier has been compromised, and so this is where you have that opportunity. I shouldn't say that opportunity, but this is where the skin, in order to protect itself, because they've created that transepidermal water loss, they don't have that balance of that water lipid hydration, and that's what's so very important when we're looking at our barrier function. And so because of that, it's lacking those lipids that, you know, that water soluble hydration is being removed, and therefore this is where it's going to create that overproduction of sebaceous activity and create those small little pimples. A perfect example of this too that you can see is if any of your clients have had a heavy resurfacing procedure like a CO2 laser, and they've created, obviously, in order for that skin to reepithelialize, we do have to create that occlusive barrier. And with that, sometimes those clients can experience a little bit of a breakout with milia. To prevent that, on a side note, anyone that doesn't know, we had our health recovery balm that was reformulated, and it is absolutely amazing. And it is actually now available. It just got launched on Monday. So if you haven't tried it, or you need additional information, make sure that you reach out to those Lyra clinical representatives, and we're really excited to be able to share that technology.
Doctor recommended, and all of us are obsessed with it. I love that. Again, using it for all sorts of things, but definitely for anybody who's dealing with age spots and wants to do the continuous maybe series of peels, you are going to make sure that they have that barrier support when you're doing those services. So around that lip, around the nose and the membrane areas, to make sure you're protecting them. It is so amazing. It is a semi-occlusive, not quite a lotion, not quite a gel, not quite a cream.
It's kind of in that balm category, if you think about it.
Yeah, it is a balm.
But the finish on it with the Kester wax is just absolutely fabulous.
And it's great to hear your feedback as I'm getting some just, people adding some information here, that they're seeing someone with that very tight, I say thin skin too. So to improve, pigment, but had to encourage her to boost her hydration to tolerate the chemical peels. Everybody's dehydrated. I don't know anybody that's like so on top of their water, and I apologize to anybody who is on top of your water, but I just don't know many people that are so on top of their water that you don't see a tiny bit of dehydration in the skin.
Yeah.
So a big one too is inflammation equals more pigment. We know that, and we're looking at this image where you can see where she had some picking, acne scars, or people who are doing aggressive peels. I know that we have all had our terrible peel stories that create some post-inflammatory. I know personally I have had one where, I peeled 3 times. I continued to peel. My skin was really angry at me, and I have some post-inflammatory that I'm continuously working on. But you layer that on top of the existing sun damage, it's like you're miserable. You're always constantly trying to work on inhibiting, and exfoliating is not always the best thing to do.
And that's where, kind of that friendly reminder that, melanin isn't necessarily super bad. Melanin is our body's natural antioxidant. So when we produce melanin, our body is protecting us. And so this is where, of course, when that inflammatory response does happen, that's why we create more melanin, because it's like kind of sending off that signal, danger, danger. I was thinking Lost in Space, danger, Will Robinson. But it is, that's what's happening within the body, and that's what's triggering that additional melanin production, is because it does see it and view it as a threat. And so that's where it wants to create more defense.
Yeah, and I'm loving the Pro Bright and the Pro Light. I've been toggling back and forth, and I'm seeing that post-inflammatory, my age spots as well, really showing a benefit to how they are evening out for the rest of my skin. It's amazing. So we mentioned the blue light, and this is a really great image for you to see where that blue light and how deep it can go. Tiff, you mentioned earlier that we were constantly in front of screens and being subjected to it throughout the day. So SPF is important throughout the day when you're working in an office.
Yeah. And that's where, again, it's kind of that perception, well, I'm not outside, I'm not at the beach, I'm not in the mountains, I'm not walking around on, super hot concrete in Vegas. All of those things, but it is that blue light that almost virtually everyone is experiencing now, where I remember back in the olden days, we used to, say that Americans would actually have more hyperpigmentation and more sunspots on the left side of their face and on like the left on their left arm, and that was
Yeah.
because of the way we drove. Now what is happening is we are seeing more and more age spots that have been induced by where you hold your phone up. Now, oh, well, I don't use that. I use my AirPods. Okay, cool beans. But that is a reality that we are starting to experience and notice, is the fact that, where you are looking, and again, where you're holding a screen closer to your face, whether it's one side or the other, this is where a lot of the times that we do need to be mindful. And this is where, as a mom of 4 kids, I also like to emphasize that, you know, smaller children are in front of a screen, whether it be for
Oh
entertainment or for
gosh, they're
education,
starting so
way,
early.
way earlier
And
than,
think of it
of
this
course, I
way
do.
too.
Yeah, and that's where, I will promote the fact that every single one of Lyra Clinical's SPFs is reef safe. They're broad spectrum, SPF 30. We are utilizing that physical protection so it gives them the best benefit possible, and there's no chemical to irritate their skin. So once you
Right.
have, those clients that, whether they're a new mom or they're struggling with those tweens and teenagers, this is where, being able to find something that's versatile enough that they'd be willing to put it on their face really is going to be able to be preventative. And, once they hit 40, they'll be like, Mom, I'm so glad you made me wear that. And you're like, I know, I know.
So I've got a good analogy for people to remember this and to really consider it. UV light is like a powerful punch to the skin. HEV light is like a slow and steady drip. It may not seem harmful at first, but it can add up over time. So we talk a little bit about our BVOC in the Elio drops that we have.
The
Do you want to talk?
tetrahexadecyl ascorbic,
I love that word.
otherwise known as THC. But yes, that's one kind of cool thing about our new Elio drops. They're not only anhydrous, but we did incorporate that THD technology. So there are those clinical studies now that say that THD does help to protect and prevent against that blue light damage. And so this is where, again, that's sometimes, especially when they first initially came out, people were asking, well, should I use the solar shield or should I use an Elio drop? And that's kind of one of those back and forth that I liked to kind of refer to, is when you're looking at your client, determine, hey, are they kind of balanced in the sense of going inside and outside, or are they predominantly inside? And if they are, those Elio drops might be a better choice for them over a solar shield.
So kind of breaking into the uneven results that we see from clients using tools at home. And you can see a great image here of someone dermaplaning themselves. How many of you guys are dealing with clients that are coming to you and are seeing an uneven, patchy, like almost ghosting around age spots because they've been doing this at home? And we could talk a little bit about how this not only affects the barrier and can potentially create further irritation, but it also is like introducing some bacteria to the skin, because if someone nicks or cuts, there's risk of infection. They don't always use clean razors. They use the same one over and over again because they don't want to get a new one. Um, and they're using ones that are not really that well formed. They're buying stuff on Amazon, and they're basically kind of creating more problems for us. So again, here we are with unevenness, creating temporary irritation, which can actually make it worse, you know, any pigmentation worse due to inflammation. And that's what we're trying to stop. You want to add anything to that, Tiff?
No, I mean, I actually, the only other thing that I was just gonna, and it is a tiny bit off topic, but just completing a studio class down in Phoenix this past Monday, that was one of the actual things that we really discussed in there, was the fact that a lot of clients now are doing these home dermaplanings, or they're doing home microneedling. And that's one thing that we really need to make sure, by way of talking to them before we apply a peel, to make sure that we're asking them and they're being, you know, honest with us, so because it can create a contraindication for a treatment.
You want to take this one?
So when we're looking at that customized treatment plan, when we see that, these are we're kind of graduating, and we kind of talked a little bit about the depth by way of epidermal versus dermal. We know that with our epidermal pigment, we have the opportunity to correct that in a more efficient manner versus dermal pigment, where it is going to take a little bit longer. And we really need to kind of have that slow burn, for lack of a better word, and being able to manage it. With those causes, a lot of the times, again, it is looking at years and years of exposure that is, you know, creating that actual spot. Whether the client is a FITS 1 or a FITS 6, they do have that opportunity for age spots. It's just a matter of how long it takes to come to the surface and their lifestyle. So, you know, really determining those sensitivities, as well as kind of Lou indicated, by way of if there's any skin cancer in their past, that can be also considered. And of course, when we're looking epidermal versus dermal, what amount of correction are we needing to provide? You know, it's always what the skin needs. And when we have that, what the skin needs, this is where, again, you know, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so,
Yeah.
you know, that's where a lot of the times, especially when you're sometimes dealing with your higher FITSes, it's going to be a slow burn. You're going to be utilizing your enzymes and your alpha hydroxy acids, you know, I am going to put our Pure Peel into that category, because it works absolutely fabulous for those higher FITSes, and they get that instant result.
They really do. It's like totally my favorite right now. And then also, you know, like the question I have for our crowd is, you know, we talk a little bit about skin analysis and how the assessment is so important, but are your clients getting assessed every quarter? Are you reconsidering what's going on in their life to make sure that they're continuously using new things that are going to fit the season, right? When we get into the brightening smart peels and protocols, you have opportunity right now to see how things can work depending on the pigment type, you know, what you can do with them, and then what you need to make sure they're doing at home. Because a compliant client is going to make a bigger impact on the pigmentation than you doing everything, you doing all the heavy lifting. You want to add to some of these treatments, Tiff?
So one of the things that I just want to look at and kind of share is just making sure that, you know, that we're looking at, again, we're kind of just as a friendly reminder, every single client should start at that hybrid treatment and that hybrid treatment protocol, and then we graduate up our GPS scale. We also look towards, you know, we've made these recommendations, but realistically, anything within the Pro line is going to just really just help promote and that keyword of brightening. We know that in every single Smart Peel protocol, from start to finish, you have that brightening aspect in every single one of those steps. And so this is where that primary with, again, retinol, retinoids that we have the opportunity for, and hexoresorcinol, as well as our tranexamic acid, all should be incorporated into both the protocol as well as your home care.
So Tiffany mentioned that when we did our handouts, we put in some protocols for you guys to look at. So Brightening Plus is that hybrid treatment that we would suggest when someone's dealing with, you know, more of a, age spot or any kind of brightening that they need to be doing, first time client. The GPS
Yes.
one, we have two options. So exomandelic protocol using our exo technology, and then our lactic clear. Now that exo technology, to me, again, somebody who's been fighting that post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation on top of dealing with some, you know, obviously aging spots. I think what I love about that is that I don't see, and part of the Pure Peel too, and the beautiful protocol we created for our purely clinical classes that uses the Pure Peel, just leave me feeling bright and happy, and I see change happening, but I don't have that downtime, and you see it so quickly. You know, it's that immediate gratification that everybody wants. What is your feeling on, I guess, when we do that lactic clear, because the exomandelic, you know, it takes a minute for the skin to respond to it. But when we're using lactic, we're going to see like immediately some change.
I mean, our lactic is a quite, you know, I would say it is a progressive solution in that sense. And so, you know, just making sure that you're following the protocol, as well as the time limits on when Smart Peel solutions should be left on the skin, and remembering that lactic clear, even though lactic acid overall is a very skin friendly acid, so the client might not feel as much activity, but that doesn't mean it's not working. And so with that, you know, making sure that you're totally and completely neutralizing the skin is going to be key. For those of you that are not familiar with our exomandelic, it is a little bit more of a, how can I say, the application is a little bit more unique. And so with that, we do have a webinar on that you can go to towards our website, but also having the opportunity, we do have a lot of our Lyra reps that are doing kind of your lunch break webinars that are talking about that new Exotech and our exomandelic peel as well.
And let's not forget body. So we did launch our body line at the beginning of the year, or at the end of last year, really, beginning of this year. But we have the illuminating décolleté body treatment. So, you know, something that's a little bit more powerful for that area would be something like this. And you can find that actually that protocol in your clinical manual, or speak to your representative about getting a copy of that. So again, it's that illuminating décolleté body treatment. And, you know, pigmentation, age spots, they're not just face, neck, and décolleté. They can be on our hands, they can be on our backs if we were sun worshipers. So it does lead into using products that are built for the body and that can be blended with some of our Smart Peels.
And that, you know, and just a tiny plug on our body brightening cleanser, with that 15% lactic acid in there, it works fabulous for that body hyperpigmentation, especially like on the arms and shoulders. Really can see a difference when used on a regular maintaining basis.
And I'm bummed out that I didn't get my slide of my arms. I'm sorry, I'm going to go back on my slides.
You just always have to show your arms, don't you?
I have to show my arms. No, because again, you mentioned the driving and how it changes. You guys can see what's happening with my computer. It's got some things happening here. Bear with me. Slowly change the slides. With my arms, I've done 2 peels on them, and then using the body cleanser, I'm every night that body souffle. You know, I will say that I am using my Pro Light and Pro Bright. You know, I put 2 pumps in my hand. I put them on my face, neck, décolleté, and my hands always feel like there's still some hydration on it. So I put the product on my arms. You know, I don't purposely pump more, but we should be mindful of that. Put them on your hands, put them on your arms. Those products that are on your face and in your neck and your décolleté, we work it down, but there's usually more. So I like saying that, you know, take it down, and that's how I do it. But prevention and maintenance is key, right? That daily SPF, face and body. And then our long-term melanin management with our Pro Light and Pro Bright Plus serums. These are our power hitters. You want to talk, we'll talk a little bit about those in the next slide.
We
Seasonal
will.
skincare. Yeah,
I was
seasonal
just going to say,
skincare
you know, we
adjustments.
kind of talked a little bit about daily SPF, but what I was just going to say is seasonal skincare adjustments, where we're kind of, at least here in Utah, sort of, we're in that
Yeah.
transition. Um, one day it's spring, one day it's summer, and then it goes back to
Southern
winter
California is the same right now. I'm wearing
so
a
this is
turtleneck.
100%. This is where, you know, being able to, for example, if your client has been on ProLite for, you know, maybe 4 or 6 months, this is a great time to consider, hey, you know what, you're running out of this one, let's switch you up just for one bottle and try the Intense C15 or try our Pro Bright serum and just kind of keep that skin in motion. So you're kind of changing it up a little bit, but and kind of exciting it, but in a good way, that it
Yeah,
wants to kind of take
let's
it
not
in and
forget
see what it
our
is.
infused. It's 420 is just around the corner. We have an infused C CBD 500
Word.
milligrams product. And it is fabulous for, you know, brightening the skin and also calming it and creating that anti-inflammatory safe place in the skin with that cannabis oil, the CBD isolate that we use.
And then, of course, you know, making sure that all of your, again, I really like to kind of make sure and focus on those home treatments when you're dealing with hyperpigmentation. And definitely two of my favorites for that are hands down Pro Anti-Aging Pads. Those are one of my faves, and the brightening mask, sleeping in it. Great question was asked actually earlier this week. Well, can I alternate the two? 100% you can. You know, maybe you're doing, you know, Pro pads on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and you're sleeping in the brightening mask on Wednesdays. Or you can combine them together. You know, put that pad on and then tell them to put the brightening mask on and then absorb and sleep in it. It is literally like that mini clinic treatment that they just performed on themselves.
Well, and our firming serum has that incredible hexoresorcinol in it too. So that offers that brightening and tightening. So you can be doing things, seasonal skincare adjustments where you're adding maybe something like the firming serum into it because, you know, we want to switch it up, right? But you can still protect yourself at the same time is my point. Or brighten. So that hexaresorcinol in our Pro Light serum, 1% of it is actually equal to 4% of hydroquinone without having to have the health concerns that we have with hydroquinone. And I feel like between the azelaic acid and the kojic acids, it's really like a powerful group of products or ingredients.
And this is, you know, when you look at this slide, you're like, what? But I will say, as an educator, this is one of the most asked questions that we have. Well, what's the difference between Pro Light and Pro Bright? And when should I recommend one and when should I recommend the other? And this is kind of that answer in a visual for you by way of this is kind of our preference, but realistically, they're interchangeable. We do, and me on a personal level, I do prefer Pro Light serum for more of that acute hyperpigmentation. For me, this is especially when you initiate that redness with inflammatory acne, because we know it's fresh hyperpigmentation and it hasn't turned to that darker brown. This is where I really feel Pro Light shines and has just those amazing anti-inflammatory properties as well. With that Pro Bright Plus, this is where your chronic established hyperpigmentation is going to work best. Melasma, with that 5% tranexamic acid, and honestly, most clinical lines don't have that percentage. So it really helps to target that established pigmentation in the sense that it's going to target every single step of that melanin management process.
There it goes again, saying goodbye to everybody.
It just, you know, it's having a mind of its own. Obviously, this
are we in retrograde?
I don't know, maybe.
Okay.
Had a fabulous
Guess what
moon
gets to
though
happen
earlier.
now?
Woo, woo. This is where you guys get a little bit of a benefit. So being able to not only have that outline available to you, but this is actually where we have the opportunity. We are giving 3 of our attendees that attended the live version of the webinar. With your next order, we will be sending out a Pro Light, a Pro Bright, and a firming serum to you. So with that, Miss Lou,
I'm going to pick a number.
I'm going to have you. We actually have, let's take, I need you to choose a number between 1 and 282.
Okay, I'm going to choose lucky number. Oh, wait, no, I know what my number is, but now everybody has to tell us what they think my number is. Is that accurate?
Oh, looks like Clarissa.
I'm gonna watch and see who's participating. First number that I see it. When I see it, up, stop. Lindsay, you have won a Pro Light serum. My number was 14. So Lindsay McCaben, congratulations. You are the winner of a Pro Light serum. Okay, Tiff. Now everybody stop participating because Tiffany gets to pick a number now.
Oh my gosh. Here, let me see here. Oh, let's.
And I'm gonna say a number.
I'm gonna say my number, my go-to number is always. Wait, hang on. Has someone said it?
McBain.
Ooh, oh, this one's close, so I'm going with Jen. Jen. Oh, I'm gonna hurt your last name. Stockert. I'm gonna try to say that correctly. You are the winner of a Pro Bright Plus serum.
Okay,
my go-to is 46.
Yeah, congratulations. Okay, everybody stop picking numbers. We're gonna go for another number. And I'm gonna ask you guys, we're gonna tighten it up because right now we only have 100 attendees. Okay, so with that being said, I wanna go from the number 1 to 150. And I got the number in my head.
Okay, let's see. Fantastical.
Keep coming, people. I don't see it.
Oh, there's quite a few.
I know, everybody's piping in, but I don't see it.
Wendy, you're in the chat, babe. I see you.
People are getting close. Right. Stop. Okay, I got it. 73. It was Paula. Paula, you get our Pro Firming.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! Yay, everybody. Thank you so much for participating in that. How fun is that? I think it's always great for us to have a good time. So Jen, Paula, and Lindsay, we will be pulling your information from the registration and reaching out to you and letting you know we're going to be sending you these products. So you guys could get to try them out. How about you guys let us know what, between the 3 of you, what product out of these 3 have you tried or have you not tried any of them? So Paula, Lindsay,
kind of the fun thing
that have you tried any of them?
Like we indicated that we have the opportunity to say thanks for jumping on and sharing your afternoon with us, because we really have a fun time being able to share these webinars with you guys. And just as a reminder, with the education department as well, we obviously always want to kind of refer you, and I don't know if Lou's computer is being nice to us right now, but all of those digital
I'm gonna
resources.
Move forward. I just was looking at
all of those
digital. We're gonna talk a little bit about resources because I see some questions popping up, and I'm so glad that everybody's sharing that. And Lindsay, thank you for having tried that Pro Light, and I can't wait for you other lovely ladies, Paula and Jen, to give a try to them. But as Tiffany, go ahead.
Yes. So we are so excited to be able to, our interactive Smart Peel Studio classes is exactly as the name indicates. They are interactive. We do keep these classes attendance very limited, so we have the opportunity to interact with you as the education team.